So behind me is my new greenhouse. This is a GrowHoops Greenhouse. They're a relatively new company out of Alberta, Canada. And I've owned this thing for about a month and a half now. This is a relatively new product from a relatively new company. And so there aren't any reviews for this thing online. And so I figured I'd review mine, even though I've only owned it for about a month and a half. And I don't have any experience with greenhouses. So this is going to be, kind of like a newbie's perspective. I felt that it would be valuable just for anybody else that's curious about the product or the company, and if they want to know if this product is worth their money. So like I said, this is a relatively new product. At the time of filming, we're coming up on the end of May. I built this one at the beginning of April. So I haven't had it very long. This is their 105-foot model. They make, I think, a 55-foot and then like a smaller backyard greenhouse as well. When I was looking to get a caterpillar tunnel style greenhouse, I really felt that I had three options. I could build one myself. I could get a farmer's friend from the United States. They have a pretty good history with greenhouses. Or I could buy from this new company, GrowHoops, and see what their product was all about. So this product is incredibly similar to a farmer's friend greenhouse. There are a few little differences when you get into the details, and so I'll get into those later. But first, when I was evaluating whether or not to build my own greenhouse using very similar materials, it became clear that with the current prices out there, it wouldn't be worth my time or my money to build one myself. It made a lot more sense to just get one of these two kits. Like I said, GrowHoops is a Canadian company. Farmer's Friend would be an American company. It was just a little easier for me to get a hold of this product compared to the Farmer's Friend. They're very, very similar. This 105-foot model is going to be very similar to the Farmer's Friend Gothic Pro 16-foot wide model with the 5-foot bow spacing. This is basically the same thing. This is a 105-foot greenhouse, 16 feet wide, and 5-foot bow spacing. So very similar. It's 5 feet longer than the 100-foot Farmer's Friend. It's also a little bit taller. This one at the peak is 11-foot 6, I think, maybe 11-foot 6, 11-foot 7 at the peak. So this one's definitely the taller of the two options. The Farmer's Friend uses, I think, 14 gauge steel tubing that's with an outer diameter of 1 3/8 inches. This is 16 gauge steel with 1 5-inch outer diameter. So I really can't tell you the difference between those. I'm not really a structural engineer. I can't really tell you which one's going to perform better, but otherwise they're fairly similar. The Farmer's Friend comes with some spring clamps to hold the plastic up, whereas I looked at some of the pictures on the GrowHoops website and people were using these wood clamps, so I just got a few of those to use. The GrowHoop does, however, come with cross bracing on every single bow, whereas the Farmer's Friend only has it on every other bow. So probably better wind protection performance on this particular greenhouse, but otherwise they're the same. They're caterpillar tunnels made out of galvanized steel tubing with ropes going over the top. So very, very similar products. In terms of price, the doors are separate on the Farmer's Friend products. So, adding a door and an end wall is going to be very similar in price to this GrowHoop, which is kind of like an all-in-one package. It comes with end wall and a door. I didn't actually go through the purchasing process with the Farmer's Friend just because it was kind of complicated. They'll ship to Canada, but you need to get your own customs broker, which was kind of just a little bit more painful. So if you're in Canada, this is definitely an easier product to buy. So something to consider if you're in Canada and you wanted to get this kind of product. Although it is worth noting, if you are in Canada and you're really, really set on the Farmer's Friend, something that I don't think they advertise in a lot of places is that you can get a $300 discount if you're ordering to Canada. That is something that they do. With all that added in, I think they're roughly the same product, roughly the same price. So first thing I want to do is talk about assembly. So on the GrowHoop website, they say that their crew of 3 people can assemble this 105-foot greenhouse in about 7 hours. Between my wife and myself, it took us quite a bit longer. Neither of us are particularly experienced when it comes to building. In general, it doesn't really matter what it is. We're not great with power tools or anything like that. But it It took this desk jockey and his wife about 5 days, maybe 4.5, because we ended up having to drive in for some extra supplies one day. I would say that getting it done with 3 people in 7 hours is probably pushing it. If all 3 of those people have their own tools, know exactly what to do, and can work independently, then maybe. Next thing I want to talk about are instructions. The instructions don't tell you what kind of tools you're going to need to assemble this greenhouse. And in some cases, they may tell you what needs to be built, but not exactly how to do it. Particularly the center purlin installation is incredibly challenging. You're going to need probably 2 people on ladders to do that. And this is a very, very tall greenhouse. For example, I have an 18-foot multi-positional ladder, and I'm also 6 feet tall, and I would have to be on the actual top rung of that ladder when it's in the A-frame position in order to touch the top of this greenhouse to get the plastic on. So, expect you're gonna need 1 or 2 21-foot ladders. Going back to that center purlin installation, there were a few parts that I wasn't super happy with. The cross connector parts, some of them were actually a little bit different shape than the others, and so they were tricky to work with. And I also think that the actual bolts connecting the cross connectors could stand to be a little bit longer. So we burned half a day driving into town to just buy longer bolts. It was too difficult to fight with on the top of our ladder. I would recommend, if you are going to build this, maybe just go out and buy some longer bolts just in case. The after purchase experience for this greenhouse was pretty solid. Some pieces of steel were a little bit shorter than they should be. That seemed to be an issue with their cut sheet. It is a new company, so they're still working out a few bugs like that. They sent me the missing parts or the parts I needed to kind of lengthen the poles. I had them at my door within 2 or 3 business days. The support for this product has been really good. I'm happy with that. So let's talk about how this thing performs. I want to start with wind resistance, because one of the other major draws of this product was that it was made by somebody in Alberta, and Alberta is known for pretty rough weather. This greenhouse was installed in a pasture with virtually no wind protection. So far, things have been holding up reasonably well. We've had, I'd say, maybe like 47 kilometer an hour winds. It's holding up fine. Some of the poly up by where the rope crosses over the peak, some of that's looking a little bit sad. But for the most part, the poly in all other spots seems to be holding up just fine. But I would say if you're in an area like mine with a lot of wind and not a lot of protection, it would probably be wise to budget to replace the poly every year. Even if that ends up not being the case. The instructions do warn about screws coming loose and nuts coming loose, and that definitely seems to be the case, particularly the self-drilling tech screws that are used to connect the bows. I'm finding that I need to tighten those every few weeks. Maybe that's a consequence of all the wind. Pretty much all greenhouses at this price point in this kind of size and scale are built with self-drilling tech screws. The biggest area that I have concerns with is the end wall post by the door. I actually really like the door mechanism on this greenhouse. I think it's really simple and it's very elegant and effective, but this plate that has these 3 tech screws driven into this end wall post, they're coming loose quite frequently, and that's causing that end wall post to completely disengage from the structure. There is some rebar at the bottom, which kind of helps with that, but I am a little bit concerned for that one area in particular. It'd be nice to see that improved, but I think there are some things that I can do here to improve that. So I think maybe what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try 2 different things. I went out and I picked up this amazing goop. I've never used it before, but I'm gonna try maybe putting a little dab of that on the bottom of the head of the tech screw when I'm screwing some of the loose ones back in, and I'm gonna hope that that causes them to stay tighter for longer. And I'm also gonna try putting a bolt through the parts of the bow that are connected with tech screws and then securing that with a lock nut. So let's talk about thermal performance. Let me preface this by saying I don't have any experience with greenhouses, and I've never had a greenhouse before. I didn't really know what to expect. Some of these numbers were a little bit surprising to me. So I've noticed there could be a 25 to 30 degree swing inside the greenhouse versus the outside temperature. So we had one day where it was only 5 degrees Celsius outside and 35 degrees Celsius inside the greenhouse. And then nighttime performance, I wasn't expecting this. The inside temperature at night is basically the same temperature as outside. Nighttime lows in some cases were all the way down to -6. There's no insulation properties with this greenhouse. That kind of caught me off guard. I was kind of hoping that there'd be a little bit more radiant heat. Maybe it needs more thermal mass. Now, fortunately, even on those -6 degree nights, we were still getting the frost protection from the poly by having it closed. So for my particular climate, I'm not sure how much season extension I'm gonna get, but I suspect that it's not going to improve my cool weather season too much just because of my particular climate. The lows are just a little bit too low for what we're trying to grow. I think it's gonna work great as a hothouse. I'm also gonna be thinking about converting this greenhouse to a double inflated poly greenhouse to see if I can get a little bit better insulation performance to improve my cold seasons. So would I buy this product again? Yeah, I'd buy it again. There aren't a lot of products in the market in North America that are actually made in North America. This is all built with American steel, and then the manufacturing and fulfillment is in Canada. A lot of the cheaper products from China that you see online don't really come with any ground anchor system that's going to keep this thing from blowing away. So I think this is a very reasonable product to expect for the price point. It's built quite solid. I have no complaints about the build quality or the support. My issues are mostly come from my climate and my own expectations. I'm going to be building off of the foundation that this kit provides to build something a little bit more custom for me. And that's kind of what you should expect when you're buying a product like this, is that you're getting the bones and expect to have to customize it a little bit to suit your specific needs. So that's it for my review of this GrowHoop. I hope that it answers some of the questions you may have if you were interested in this product or a product like this. If you have any additional questions, just drop a comment down below and I'll see what I can do to get that answered. And that's it for today. Sleep well tonight.